Lancaster. Jim, welcome to the show.
Appreciate it, Kevin. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Definitely. So, Jim, how have you been these days? I know we're returning to some sort of normalcy these past few weeks. I know the last few months were a little hectic, but how have you been lately?
The last couple of months, my last day of work was March the 13th. We had the Cats release here in town, and then all of a sudden they were saying, "Hey, we're not going back to school." Well, I don't have a problem with that at all. I've been at work for so long, so often, to have an opportunity to do things at home was a great deal. So, I mean, I spend a lot of time getting things done that are on my wish list and kind of enjoying that downtime. But it is a little scary because it does keep you at home a little bit and kind of makes it a little bit difficult, challenging getting some of the things done that you really need to get done. So there was, and it's a little concerning when you're seeing all of the illness and the deaths and things going on outside in the world. That always concerns everybody. But other than that, sad part is I recently had a total knee replacement. So I'm just struggling the last couple of weeks. It's been about 2 weeks now, just struggling, trying to get around and get mobile again. And then trying to touch base with what's going on in the district as the talks continue about trying to get back sports back in the fall, and where that puts me in relationship to what I need to do with my schools as we start back up. But currently I'm working 2 middle schools in the school district, and the middle schools don't have quite so much going on during the summer, before school starts. So, but it's all kind of up in the air. But, I've enjoyed the downtime. I've enjoyed being home with my family. And then short of the surgery and the struggles that I've had for the last 2 weeks, I'm looking forward to trying to move forward and kind of get out of the woods here and get back to moving around again and then kind of finding out what's going to happen in this summer and in upcoming fall.
Definitely. We both had a relationship with Roy Hess, who just passed away last week. We talked about it earlier, and you knew who he was from his times at the Pan Am days. So just a couple of words on Roy and how you knew him.
Well, it's a sad deal in the passing of Roy, and my condolences go out to his family. I think probably him passing, way too soon. Yet I don't know whether he really had any underlying health conditions. But my encounters with Roy were several years back. It's probably got to be back in maybe even the 90s when he was a beat writer, and we always took one of the beat writers from the local newspaper on the road trips with us for the Pan Am basketball games. And in a lot of those cases, that person got put in the room with me. And so I had some encounters with Roy, and of course, that's been a long time ago. And, but there had been many of those beat writers that were traveling on the road with us, reporting the games back and getting that information out on the games back in the day. So, but no, Roy was also inducted into the RGV Sports Hall of Fame shortly before I did. I think it was you were saying the year before, it was like 2016. And that was probably maybe the last time I saw him, and probably hadn't had too many encounters with him between the times he was traveling with us back as a beat writer and encountering him again at the RGV Sports Hall of Fame. But yeah, I was saddened. My wife mentioned it, and I was kind of saddened to hear that, because those are things you don't expect. And especially if it comes, quickly and you're not really prepared for it. So, like I say, my condolences go out to his family, and God bless them and give them a little comfort in their grief at this time. So,
definitely. Moving on, Coach. We're gonna the fans gonna get to know you just a little bit. We were talking about having just a quick little Q&A deal here, just in case the fans don't know who Jim Lancaster is. They're gonna get to know him just a little bit more here in these next couple minutes. We had mentioned whether it was Marvel or DC, if you had to pick one, and I don't think you had an answer.
Yeah, I didn't really have an answer. It's like, if it comes down to the movies or whatever, hey, if it's a good movie, I'll watch it. I wasn't a comic book kid when I grew up. I grew up when you played outside, so, But yeah, that's not one of the things I would sit there and say, yeah, I had a preference. It's like if the movie comes out and it's a good movie, I'm going to probably watch it. But because I do kind of like those the superhero movies. I think it's kind of neat.
But you did say you have some familiarity with Star Wars, though, right?
I had some familiarity with it. Yeah, initially, when did it start? Back in the 70s? I don't even remember now. It's been so long. But you know, I've watched some of the recent ones, and I'm not like my daughter. My daughter likes to keep up with all the episodes and knows that she's like, I got to watch them all in a row, and I have to get them back in, you know, get them in order. And I'm not going to watch this one without watching that one first. And I'm going, hey, it's just a movie, you know. But I've always liked the characters. I've always liked the creativity of the you know, of Star Wars, and you know, and I'll continue to watch it. I'll continue to watch the new ones that come out. You know, even the side shoots. I'm still waiting to see the Mandalorian. You know.
Yeah.
And I hear that's on, you know, one of the special channels, and my daughter says she gets that, and it's like I'm still waiting to see that because I'm interested in Baby Yoda. You know.
Yeah, I think we all were. I think we all were, definitely. That's on the Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Favorite sports movie?
Oh my God. You know, there's been a lot of them over the years, and unfortunately, I always tell people jokingly that I've been diagnosed with CRS, which means you can't remember. You can figure out the rest. And I'm trying to think what it was, but it was a Denzel Washington. I think he was a football coach or something. I can't remember the name of it now.
Remember the Titans.
Okay, there you go. And just something about the motivation, you know, the heart that these movies bring back. Because, you know, being around athletics and being on the sidelines and being on the road and traveling with teams and dealing with the same kind of emotional issues that a lot of these athletes deal with, there's always something in those movies that touch you, that goes, you know, and you break up, you break down. I mean, you go like, God dang, it's that kind of movie. And it's like, man, it's just, you wish that more coaches had the compassion and the heart, you know, that you see in the movies, and you're going, yeah, it's only a movie, you know, but there are so many out there that do. There are so many that do. So I would say that was probably one of my favorites.
So you spend a lot of time at games, right? So we got to ask, what's your favorite pregame meal? Did you have any set pregame meal that you had to have before a game?
The favorite pregame meal is the one that was free. And we got a lot of those. So, no, I mean, I was never picky pregame meal, because a lot of times what happens, it was always preset for us. And, you know, and we'd have players come in, I can't eat that stuff. Man, what is this? You know, and I'm going, man, you guys don't know, you know, you can't be that picky. Never complain about something you get free, you know. And because when I started out at the university, you know, I wasn't making a whole heck of a lot of money. And I was probably on what you consider grad assistant money, you know. And so any kind of free meal I could get, man, I'm thankful. And I'm telling, man, this is good, you know, so why complain? So free one would be my favorite pregame.
Makes sense. Favorite sports teams, whether that be football, baseball.
And we talked a little bit about that. To me, it was hard because, strangely enough, as an athletic trainer who surrounds sports every day, I never really spent a lot of time watching sports on TV outside of school, you know, because I was just overloaded with it sometimes, and I could never keep up with them. So I never really knew how they were doing or whatever. But as I mentioned to you, I always try to keep up a little bit with Cleveland Cavaliers and Miami, and then LA, because one of my ex-student trainers, Mike Mancias, is LeBron James's personal trainer. And Mike would travel he started out at Cleveland when LeBron came in as a rookie. And so I would always try to catch one of those games if it came on, just to see if I could see Mike on the sidelines. And I would go, I really don't know the players, but I always liked watching basketball. I grew up kind of a basketball kind of guy, and tried out for basketball in high school, didn't make it. Followed basketball, when I became a trainer, got to work as a basketball trainer in college, got hired at the university because basketball was a primary sport. And that had been really my primary interest in sports, because there's so much action in it. football, I didn't get to work a lot of football. So I didn't really have much interest in fact, when I took the job with Edinburgh School District, that was probably the first football I had worked since Joe Montana and Earl Campbell were in the Cotton Bowl in 1978. So that was my last football game. So never really had the opportunity because, Pan Am, UT Pan Am didn't have football. So getting in the school district was my first exposure to football in a long time.
Sweet. Favorite music?
Favorite music? I've got a lot of favorite music. Right now, I would say Vince Gill, who's a country artist, been around for a long time. Started following him back in, it was probably in the 70s, late. He was kind of a rocker with a band called Pure Prairie League at the time, and then became an individual artist and kind of followed him. And it's just been kind of big on my list lately. But my music varieties are all over the place, from flamenco to bluegrass to smooth jazz, a little of everything. I'm not so much into the hip hop and, or rap or anything like that. But, popular music that's out there now, it's a little bit different. There's a lot of good artists that have good songs, but I'm not following them quite so much. Definitely.
We're joined by ECISD athletic trainer and Hall of Famer Jim Lancaster here. Just a little Q&A for the fans, just to get to know him just a little bit. Moving on to, we just saw the NBA that they're coming back, I believe in July, and it's just real out of sync. The season's going to end in October. Hopefully we'll have football by then. Baseball hopefully will be back, and just how everything's just so out of flux. But what were your thoughts on the NBA slowly coming back from a trainer's standpoint? Did you feel that this is the right time to kind of just put everything in motion?
Well, I think the nature of professional basketball as a profession, it's still a business, and like the rest of the country that shut down and stopped their business for such a long time, at some point in time, you got to get back. Whether it's what we consider, that's recreational stuff, it's for fun, it's just for entertainment. No, it's a business, and and it's a multi-million-dollar business. So at some point in time, there's a lot of money tied up in that, and in order to pay those athletes, you have to generate funds, and the only way to do that is to get back started again at some point in time. Unfortunately, what everybody in all sports at all levels are going through right now is, how do you do that safely? Because potentially putting people back into the at-risk scenario potentially risks not only the health and the career of that one particular athlete, but everyone they're involved with. The concept of maybe bringing them back with stadiums half full, who gets the tickets? How did he decide who gets in? Well, it's going to be the higher priced ones, whoever's going to pay the highest, just like Super Bowl, not everybody can buy a ticket, but the advertising will go back on, the media will go back on, it'll get back on TV, the people will get what they want, the athletes are kind of back in, and I'm sure they'll open out training. They haven't just been sitting on their butts. They're out there training, trying to make their game better, because they're all looking for a better scenario. But it's going to be a challenge because, you're going to have to do, from a trainer's perspective, you're going to have to do, pre-screening and all these things every day before the guys step back on the floor to make sure that nobody's showing any symptoms, which is a challenge since with COVID, there aren't always symptoms. So guy feels great, plus the fact if I report there's something wrong with me, I might get isolated for 2 weeks. Now what? So do I tell? But I'm sure they'll have, a systematic way of, their sports medicine staff going out and double checking, make sure everything is done correctly for the best interest, because like I say, they're protecting their investment. And this, like you say, it's a multi-million-dollar investment.
Mm-hmm. And you're currently with ECISD. I live just down the street from Florida Stadium, and I've seen how they've done the graduations. And we were at Lyford's graduation this past Friday, and just seeing how different things are, and our photographer taking pictures with the kids with masks on, the seats 6 feet apart, and all the social distancing guidelines. Like this is history that we're seeing.
It's a different world. Yeah, it's a different world, definitely.
It's different. With what you can share, how is ECISD's plans moving as far as athletics go, and what's it looking like?
Well, we've had a couple of online Zoom meetings with not only the Valley Athletic Trainers Association and the trainers around the Valley, but also with the ECISD athletic trainers, talking about what the latest information is about the steps and procedures necessary to reinitiate, sports participation during the summer. Because normally what would happen during the summer, there's off-season conditioning, strength training, stuff like that, some individual workouts or workouts with the coach in a controlled environment, limited number of people, limited contact with equipment or whatever. And so they're trying to get back to a certain degree, some level of that, falling within the parameters of the UIL and other recommendations for, health and safety to keep people apart. Well, how do you participate in sports when you're 6 feet apart? How do you run to full capacity when you're wearing a mask? That's a struggle. So there's some things there. And then how do you pre-screen the kids every day to make sure that they haven't had contact with someone who, someone at home or whatever, an older brother, sister who went out to the beach or whatever might have done, or might have been in contact with someone else, or maybe somebody is at home, teammates got a parent at home that's down sick. So now you've got to screen those kids, take their temperatures every day, do questionnaires and find out, are they being exposed, and would that potentially put that small group of kids that they're working with, exposing them? Because the story I understand is, if for some reason there's a coach working with, say, 20 individuals in their workouts during the summer, they have to be pre-screened before they can go on, make sure there's no temperature, make sure there's no existing conditions or whatever, cough, fever, whatever it might be. And then they can go work out for whatever their hour and a half is and then move on. However, if someone all of a sudden pops up and starts showing symptoms, they get sent home. So if they get sent home, the potential that the entire group, including the coach, is quarantined for 2 weeks. Wow. Everybody back. So it's kind of like, it's I don't want to say it's not feasible. It's going to be very challenging. It's going to be very challenging because if you work and live from an athletics perspective, you want to get back to normal. You want to get back to athletics. You want to get back to things that you know. You don't want things to be changed. You like doing it the way you've always done it. We're in a completely new world where everything changes. Nothing is going to be like you ever did it before. And it's going to be very frustrating because it's going to be more time consuming. It's going to take a lot more creativity. It's going to take a lot more patience to work with. And everybody I just want to get back. I don't want to hear about all that. I just need to get started. So it is going to be a challenge. And that's what the trainers have been talking about. What forms do we need to do? We need to make sure that anybody who took a physical last spring, well, there's huge hiatus of time between when they last took their physical and what's going on now. So have you had any since then? Have you been exposed to anybody since then? So you have to update that right away. Get all the forms done online, get the daily screenings, find out how you're going to bring them in, and find out how you're going to keep them away from everybody else. And then if you've got, Mikey's on Group A and he's hanging out with Joey in Group B, and Joey's messing around with somebody over here that was sick, and Joey gets sick. Now they're saying Group B may be pulled out and Group A might have to be pulled out because they're having contact with each other. So because the potential, spread of COVID and the way it's been working, we really don't know. And it takes too long for the symptoms to come up. So we are going to deal with this at some point in time, and it is going to become a challenge because kids are going to get sick at some point in time. I understand the number of cases is starting to increase again as we've opened the cities back up and opened up the contact back up, and people are going to have already been frustrated, I'm sure, being isolated for so long. Man, the heck with that, I'm going back. It's not getting me, I'm going back. So they go back, and then before you know it, I'm the virus, I don't feel it. That's what the biggest challenges are. So the school districts and the trainers getting information passed down by the UIL, which is helping them put together some concepts and ideas. Yet there's nothing written in stone yet. Yet that date that they want to start is coming up really quick. It's coming up really quick. But I think we're waiting to see what's going to actually happen. But the main thing is you do have to have a plan in place before you actually start. Whenever the start date is, you have to have a plan in place, and you're going to have to make adjustments along the way.
Right. And then one conversation I've had with coaches is that, and The interesting thing is, when does the red flag start to come up when we're starting to think, okay, the season may start late or there may not be a season at all? Because say we're in July, middle of July, and we're still having this same conversation about limited workouts, only 25%. As a trainer, do you have that red flag in your head, or maybe a set date? Like, if we're not here by this date, the season, volleyball, football, cross country could get pushed back?
Well, the way I look at it, and I've been around a long time, so the way I look at it is athletics, although we're so, those who are involved in it are so used to it happening. Athletics is a very small cog in the wheel of education and in the way of the world. Although, in this country, athletics is so huge. But when it comes down to the safety and health, if they're shutting down countries, if they're closing down businesses, if they're stopping all this other thing, major sports, then you have to take that, what I call the open-minded perspective is if Texas Educational Agency decides to open up the campuses with restrictions on contact between students, then and no personal interaction, then how is that feasible for sports? Because you can't have sports without interaction. So if they're so concerned about following the CDC guidelines and all these things like that, you have to take in the back of your mind a certain perspective that being open-minded, trying to not being biased. Well, in sports, we've got to get this done. And a lot of the thoughts in my mind is, athletics holds themselves very high priority in the hierarchy, what's important on campuses. Yet it's a very small portion of education in general. And education is a requirement. Athletics is not. Fine arts, dance, band, all those things. Those are all extracurricular activities, all of which we're so used to having and wouldn't know what to do without. The requirements. So I have to think that there's a portion, of my thought process in the back of my mind is like, we may not start in the fall. And it wouldn't be the end of the world because obviously we shut down the country for 2 months, so it wouldn't be the end of the world, but it sure stirs some people up, because they want to get back to what they're used to doing and what they love doing. So the biggest concern I would have, and the concern I still have, and I still bring up at these meetings is like, look, let's don't try to push this thing just because the time says we're supposed to start in August. Let's make sure we're doing this and doing it right. Because we're going to open up a big can of worms that may end up wiping out half our team in the first place. If we can't do it and do it right, or this virus hasn't gone past us, or if we haven't found a way to control this, then we're putting kids together and they're rubbing all over each other and breathing all over each other and coughing all over each other and stuff like that. And they just want to play. And so it's a little bit of a concern. It's a little bit of a concern. We don't absolutely have to start football on this date. It's just what we're used to doing. Well, remember, it's a new normal, and we don't know exactly what that new normal is. So it's going to be, it might come up and they say, look, we're getting inundated with COVID cases during the summer. And they may say, we have to rethink this. Governor Abbott might just say, we might start virtual school classroom, start that in August, get started and go through January. And let's see where we're at with that vaccine in January and then pick up from there. Now, do kids miss out on football season, volleyball season? It's a possibility. But we missed out on the NBA season. We missed out on Major League Baseball. And those are, in a perspective, probably a bigger priority and obviously much more money involved than high school athletics. So some kids will be disappointed, just the same as kids were disappointed if they couldn't have their normal graduation ceremony, couldn't finish their season. Kids are going to the playoffs and seasons were canceled. Boom, it's done. And you wouldn't want to wish that on anybody. Because you want kids to have that great experience. And athletics has been a great experience for so many kids for so many years. But we're, like you say, we're looking at a new normal. And we're not even sure what that is yet. So it might still change. It still might change. But in my mind, athletics may not be the priority. Maybe we'll just get school started to see how we do. Maybe start putting kids back in the classroom, see how we do. And then start phasing that in, Maybe what you do is you take the minimally contact sports and you start them in the fall.
Right.
And then flip-flop them. and start your football in the spring. I mean, it's, we always complain about being too hot to play football. It's 100 degrees when you're playing football. Well, I had my first experience with the girls soccer team, when I'm at the middle schools, and they're playing in January, and it's freezing cold out there, whatever, and you're going, these poor kids, they're always stuck with this season,
Mm-hmm.
So we just have to learn, we have to learn to roll with the punches right now, but we do have to do a lot of preparation, and there's a lot of thought process going into it, a lot of meetings and a lot of consideration, and people are there's a lot of wheels turning. I know in our district, there's a lot of wheels turning amongst the trainers already. Getting kids, let's get this stuff lined up. Let's get their physicals in place just in case. Maybe it doesn't turn out the way they want it to, but let's get our stuff done in place and get our physicals, get the paperwork, make sure everybody's clear, because when it does start, we got to be ready to roll.
Definitely. We're joined again by the Hall of Famer and ECISD athletic trainer, Jim Lancaster. Edwin Gomez, he commented, he said, the man, the myth, the legend. And he says, ask him about his Karl Malone story.
Of my Karl Malone story, Karl Malone story I had is when it was Pan American University, it was probably 80, 81, 82. Karl Malone played for Louisiana Tech, and we were playing Louisiana Tech, I think, on home court. And I was sitting on the sideline bench with one of my other student trainers, was Marie Garcia. She's Marie Thompson now, and Marie's also a trainer in La Jolla School District. And Karl Malone's flying out of bounds trying to save a ball, and he tries to leap over the bench. So his foot comes up, lands me in the middle of my chest. I'm grabbing his hips, and all the chairs are interlocked together, and we just all go flying over backwards, And of course, you're thinking Karl Malone was a good basketball player at the time. And of course, he wasn't in the pros, so we didn't know those things, but we knew that he was a really good basketball player at the time in college, and he was a big monster, but when you got a guy like that, a guy coming out and you're stuck on the chairs are locked together how they are sometimes, and I'm thinking, this guy, I know he can jump, so hopefully he's jumping over the bench, but his foot was right in the middle of my chest, and we just go for backwards, and you all survive that. But it was just one of those stories that, things happen,
Right.
And that's part of sports.
Right. Yeah, we had to get that question in there. So let's just wind back the clocks a little bit and talk about, what made you want to become an athletic trainer, and, what inspired you to join this profession?
Well, it started my freshman year in high school. I was a kind of an academic nerd in junior high, and as I got into high school, and all my buddies said, let's go out for the basketball team. It was like, dude, I'm the last guy that gets picked in line. What do I know about basketball? Oh, they'll teach you. If you don't know, they don't want you. So I tried out for basketball team with my buddies. We had a bunch of cuts. My buddies got cut before I did because I was a little bit taller than they were. I could run, I could jump, I could shoot a little bit. Wasn't very good at plays. But I worked with a guy who was our assistant basketball. He was a JV basketball coach. He was also my history teacher, but he was also the school athletic trainer. And we worked with those guys until football was over. And when football came out, they brought down the football coach. Okay, he's going to be your coach now. Who's this guy? Nobody knows him. All new plays. And he said, if you didn't play football, you're not on my basketball team. What the heck? So they started proceeding to try to chase off all the guys who were in basketball that were on football. So, you hang on as long as you can. And eventually I got cut. And the JV coach, who was the trainer, came up to me and he said, I know you're disappointed, but have you ever thought about being an athletic trainer? And I'm kind of like, well, what is that? So, well, you're still around sports. You're helping the kids, taking care of injuries and stuff like that. I said, sounds interesting. I like being around it because I just kind of want to be the normal person. When you're National Honor Society, you kind of get pushed in a corner. People think you're a nerd or whatever. And, you want to be in athletics. Man, it was the best of both worlds. So I came out for athletics the next year, got put with a basketball team, started working as an athletic trainer for basketball for 3 years in high school. And then when it got time to graduate, the athletic trainer wrote a letter to the head trainer at UT Austin, which is where I was going to college, and said this guy's interested in, being an athletic trainer at the university. Could you, please consider him? So I had fun. I mean, I enjoyed working as a trainer, and I felt like I could play a part. I felt there was something I could do, and I enjoyed it. Plus I was interacting with athletes, and I could still be around that fun stuff. So that's kind of how I got started.
And you're not from the Valley, or you're from San Antonio, right?
San Antonio. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what was that like? Did you start in high school? Were you an athletic trainer in high school?
I was an athletic trainer 3 years in high school from my sophomore year on. And then I went to school at UT Austin, and I became an athletic trainer. I went to talk to the head athletic trainer at UT Austin, and I was scared. I mean, it's a campus of 52,000 students, and so I finally got enough, gumption up to go up and say that, if I'm going to do this, I got to go talk to somebody. So I went up to the Memorial Stadium, the football stadium, and you have to get past police to get out to practice. And I said, I need to talk to the athletic trainer, Frank Medina. Is a guy had been with the university for probably 30 something years before he passed eventually. And so I went up to talk to him, and he's about a 5'2" Cherokee Indian guy, but a legend in athletic training. And I said, Mr. Medina, my name is Jim Lancaster. I was a trainer in high school. My trainer sent a letter saying, I'm interested. Did you get the letter? No, son, sorry, didn't. It's just like so disappointed, And he said, but, hey, come out, talk to my assistant, a guy named Spanky Stevens, who became the head trainer after Frank passed away, and is another legend in athletic training. He said, come out and talk to my assistant, Spanky Stevens. We'll get you started. But talk to your parents. It's a lot of time, it's dedication, it's a lot of commitment. You got to make sure you're good in school, take care of your business, stuff like that. So they took me in, and I was like, oh my God. Well, I came out late. Football had already started. They were about to start basketball season. And he said, well, I'm going to send you down to Gregory Gymnasium, and I'll let you work with basketball because, football's already pretty much over, and they're about to start basketball. So I'm going to let you work over there with Dave, the trainer there, and take you under the wing and show you some things and stuff like that. So I'm going, great, basketball. I mean, that's what I did in high school. So I got lucky. I worked 5 years of basketball at UT Austin, Texas Longhorns. We went to the NIT championship in 1978. We qualified for NCAA one time. It's like, it was the greatest thing in the world. And I was a part, and it's just like, you can't beat this. I mean, I'm traveling all over the country. We're playing games. I loved it. I just, how do you not enjoy being around sports and athletics at this level? My sophomore year, they started building the Frank Irwin Center, the Super Drum there in Austin, where they play all the basketball games. That was under construction. And then they brought in a brand new basketball coach. And the brand new basketball coach was a guy named Abe Lemons, who was the athletic director and basketball coach at a school called Pan American University from 1973 to 1975. So there's the connection. And he came in, and he was a bit of a showboat, and everybody loved it. But when you fill up the special event center with 16,700 and something people for a Texas Longhorn basketball game, I'm in seventh heaven. I'm just, oh my God, this is just amazing, and I'm a part of it. So why wouldn't you love that? So I've been lucky to have a lot of great opportunities. I have a lot of success with the teams that I've worked with. And then when I graduated, basically Coach Lemon said, hey, look, there's a job at my old school. I can help you get that. Well, I'm 22 years old. My state license as an athletic trainer, have absolutely no experience. And I'm saying, Coach, I'm going to hire a guy with no experience at a college, And I was applying all high schools, San Antonio, Houston, Austin area, and couldn't get a job. So I was getting desperate. August 19th, they finally called me up and say, hey, we'd like to get you to come down for an interview and talk a little bit, whatever. And it's like, well, sure, yeah, please. Like the last resort, what else do I have? School usually starts September 1. So they drive me down or fly me down and pick me up at the airport, bring me in. And the athletic director, who's the current ball coach and athletic director, was assistant coach for Lemons, previously, comes in, and he basically wanted to hire a guy that came on Lemons' recommendation, worked mostly basketball, was young and inexperienced. You didn't have to pay him very much.
Right
there, So that's how I got started in 1980. September 1980, I came down to the Valley. kind of sight unseen. Took a job as head athletic trainer. 22 years old, no experience other than working high school and college athletic training, and thrown into the head university, head training job at the university with now basketball, volleyball, tennis, track, soccer, all these other sports, and going, oh wow, I got to take care of those too, But it was a challenge, and I felt like somebody wanted me there, so that's kind of how I got started, and that's that's my history, kind of getting into Pan Am.
What were some things that stood out to you at Pan Am, and now these days you're seeing the university grow, and now that it's UTRGV, and just seeing it from back then and seeing it till now, just the changes that the athletic program, the strides that the athletic program has made?
Well, the strides is obviously there was a lot better funding now. There's a lot better organization now. There's a lot better support and control now. We had our challenges over the years. Financing was difficult, but the thing that never really changed is the dedication and the hard work of the athletes that came in. The kids were always trying to do their best, and sometimes battling, just unfair odds, playing against schools. A lot of times, especially back in the early 80s and 90s, not only basketball, but within baseball, we were playing teams that were, national contenders. How do you get a game with that? Well, you're a Division I team and you're playing other Division I schools, so we were playing some great teams, sometimes hard to compete against. And sometimes, we kind of surprised some people. We went to the NIT in the spring of '81, but we had beaten Bobby Knight, who became national champions that year. We beat them in a tournament, and in Hawaii that year. And then ended up playing, I'm going blank. I can't even remember now. Anyway, we ended up playing a team that ended up winning the NIT. We lost to them in the first round of the NIT. But that was a good year with a bunch of what we call ragtag guys that came from all over the country. They just played well together, a lot of great individuals, a lot of kids with heart. They played their butts off. And that was the thing that made me really proud, because win, lose, or draw, I mean, you win with the guys, you lose with the guys, you laugh with them, you cry with them. That's what made me enjoy that, is like, you're a part of something. These guys are working hard. Hey, we may not win a game, but you gave it everything you had, and that's one of the things that kept me in athletics for so long. It's just the dedication that the kids and the work, and the work effort that they put in. And now that I look, the kids have, obviously there's a lot more scholarships. There's the facilities are much, much better. The strength training really didn't have much of that before. The facilities for there are amazing now. Getting incorporated with UT Health, and the UT Health system has done an awful lot to help the athletic department. Having all the support systems in place that were never really there before. Academic advisement, that program is amazing compared to what it was back then. In fact, there wasn't really much at all back then. The checks and balances, things that are in place now that kind of keep you from getting in trouble, they weren't there back in the early days. You grow through the struggles and the trials and tribulations and sometimes the penalties. You grow through all of that process and you learn from it. But that's just the road that the Lord put us in, and nobody ever said it was going to be easy. But you go down that road and you see what gets thrown at you and you try to make your way through it. It's what I call the challenge, or is it a problem? And the difference between a challenge and the problem is your mindset on how you're going to get through it or not. So, but big difference in what athletics has become at the university, and it's kind of amazing to see as it continues to grow.
We talked earlier about there's a coaching branch. There's the head coach, and he has his coaching branch, and other coaches go on to become head coaches elsewhere. We talked about the training branch, how you had a lot of trainers work for you and with you, and then now, or as students, now they're at their own trainers at whether it be a high school or colleges. You mentioned you have trainers that are in the NBA. Just talk about your relationships with the trainers that here in the Valley.
The thing that I've always tried to remember is that when I look back at it, I needed them as much as they needed me, because when we started doing this, obviously things have changed a little bit in the way athletic training is handled. Is these were students who wanted to be trainers or thought they did, and we just gave them an opportunity. The education in itself wasn't a formal education. It was an internship program, what we call a watch, look, listen, and learn, which is exactly what I did when I was at UT Austin. And it was very minimal. The education wasn't out there. A lot of times we didn't have DVDs and videos and books and online stuff. Maybe you didn't get that until probably late 90s in a lot of cases. So it was taking your experience, doing the hands-on, sitting down with the kids and teaching them things. But it was also teaching them hopefully what I call the little lessons in life about, trying to treat them right and, be respectful. And you got to consider the compassion that you have to have as an athletic trainer. Because these kids are really down and out when they get hurt. I mean, to them, it's like a life-ending, oh my God, it's a career-ending injury. Oh my God, what am I going to do? And you have to find a way to be a counselor and a mentor and a motivator. So the same way as I'm trying to teach my students. So we had a lot of times you're sitting at games, sitting in practice just for hours, and we would talk about a lot of things, not only about how you deal with this injury and what else you might have to look out for. And hey, don't forget to think that you might have to do this, but also, doing your job, doing it right, being dedicated, don't look for excuses. It's a lot of work, but somebody's got to do it. And, that's kind of what you came out here for. So a lot of it is what I call paying it forward. There have been so many great students that I've worked with. Some of them have gone on to other things. Some of them are in physical therapy. You can go into the athletic training route. Some have gone into, different things, and that's fine. There was never a requirement from them to enter the internship program to go on to be in athletic training, go into athletic training. What I'm proud to say is that there's so many out there in the Valley. I'd like to say I mentioned Mike Macias, who's LeBron James's personal trainer. Joe Resendez is the head trainer for the Sacramento Kings. Both Mike and Joe came from Brownsville, and they came to Pan Am and wanted that opportunity. And what they did is they took the opportunity and they made the most of it, and they followed their dreams. And now they're working in the NBA. Alfred Castillo was one of my students back in the 90s, and he became my successor at the university when I left. Yeah. So, and a lot of the other student trainers, and there's so many, and I mean, I could probably go down the list. I don't know how much time we have, but I've got somebody that, Edwin, you mentioned Edwin Gomez, there at La Jolla, Lee Rodriguez and Ronnie Perez that are in the Harlingen School District, Javi Banuelos and Jojo Ruiz and Westlaco. There's a lot of the younger ones that have just gotten started. Alexis Martinez is in Ed Calchels, Borrego and Dustin Pena. There's just numbers of kids that as you go through this list that are still here in the Valley. Jimmy Cantu is a trainer in the Valley. He's probably younger than me, if anything. And he was about to graduate from Pan Am and been there a couple of years as a student trainer when I came in. And he's been a Brownsville athletic trainer for years and years and years, and he got inducted to the Valley Athletic Trainers Association Hall of Fame the same year I did. I'm thinking, man, he was one of my student trainers, and like I said, Marie Thompson, who was a student trainer at the when I first got there. Now she's still at La Jolla, same way, getting inducted to the Valley Athletic Trainers Hall of Fame. Those are things that they've made a career out of it. They've stuck with it. All these kids had opportunities, and some of them are young and they're just getting started, and some of them are older, and and they're looking for what's the next best thing? Trainer at Economides High School, Claudia Gonzalez, one of my student trainers. One of my colleagues at the ECISD in the middle schools, Alfonso Guajardo, was one of my student trainers. So there's a lot of these kids that have come along the way that have done well. Some of them have stayed with it, and some of them haven't been able to, for whatever reasons. One of my favorite guys, Ray Buendia, at Los Fresnos, and ran into some health issues and had to stop what he was doing. But, just so dedicated in what he was doing. And you're thinking, you know what, if I were just out there kind of leading by example these kids saw that and they said, I'd like to do that. I like being around sports. Let me do this. All they can do is take the information you hand them. And education is like playing ball. I can throw it to you, but you have to catch it. And those are the kids who have done so well to catch what we tossed at them, took the opportunity, ran with it, and have made a success out of it. Joe Ramos, Mackay, he's been there almost 20 years, and you look back at these kids and you're going, man, I'm really proud that these kids have done so well. And the good part about it is every year we have a sports medicine symposium at South Padre Island, and everybody from the Valley gets together, and all those trainers there, they are again. So I get to see them again, and it brings back a lot of good memories. And, but I tell you what, it has been a lot of fun, and it's exciting to see a lot of those trainers now as I go back and remember those good times that we used to have, so, but it's kind of interesting how now, like you say, so many of those kids have gone on and done well, have been successful. And what they'll do is they'll turn around and send another generation of trainers back into the system somewhere.
And I think one thing, for athletic trainers as a whole is the season we're fixing to head into the fall, it's going to be completely different. So I think now is a time more than ever. We need you guys, athletic trainers. And it's good. I can imagine the challenges, because I know I talked with Ronnie over at Harlingen South, and we were talking about the cups or the water bottles.
Drinking water bottles. How you gonna? Yeah.
No more water bottles.
Contagion. Yeah.
You're gonna use cups. How are locker rooms gonna be handled? How are kids gonna be traveling to games? So, we have our work cut out for us, but there not being any sports, you guys have your work cut out for you all as well on the athletic standpoint. But I fully believe we will play sports in the fall. I just think we start late. That's my opinion.
Things will be handled a lot differently. Yeah, things will have to be handled a lot differently. Those are the logistics behind the scene type of things that most people don't really want to worry about because it's somebody else's problem. But as long as we get to start and when the whistle blows, and I think for the most part, we can probably make it happen, and there'll be a phase-in period that's going to be very confusing and very challenging. But I think all they want to know is let's just get started and see how it works. Somebody gets hurt. I mean, people get hurt in athletics all the time. So you get in, he gets hurt. Well, sorry, good luck to you. Take care of him. Hopefully you get him back. Unfortunately, something like COVID, with the potential for contagion, it can inundate a team. I remember a few years back when I was working with women's soccer at the university, we had kind of a stomach virus go around, and it hit our women's soccer team, and it took out 9 girls in one day, and then 2 days later it took out 11 more girls. And you're going, oh my God, but that stuff is not that uncommon because it does happen because the close proximity every day, kids inadvertently share a water bottle, share a towel. I mean, a few years back, MRSA or staph infection, the fears and anxieties about contagion of MRSA and staph infection was so adamant out there. People were like, well, you can't be rubbing on people. You can't have any open wounds. You can't share water bottles. You can't share towels. You can't do this. You can't do that. We got to clean the locker rooms. We got to disinfect. COVID is 10 times worse because people are still walking through the dirty locker rooms and they still smell like locker rooms, but COVID is like, who's going to pick up the cost of disinfecting? How are we going to keep people from interacting like they normally are used to interacting? Because you can't walk in between them. Hey, you guys need to step apart. You're too close. What's going to happen when they get on the field?
Right.
So it's going to happen. They're going to get started again, and contagion is going to happen. Kids are going to get it, and unfortunately, they're going to have to sit out. Hopefully, it won't be so bad where it takes the numbers down, significantly. Where well, coach, I don't think I can play you guys next week because I got 7 guys left on the squad.
Right.
That's a reality. And that's why I think that's why the NBA says, look, I already got 2 guys that have tested positive, and they've already interacted with everybody else. Now we got to find out who else has got it before we spread this again. So you got to shut them off and quarantine them and go from there. So in reality, my thought process is let's not rush into this. but I don't make those decisions. So I think what all the trainers are thinking now is we've got to be prepared for no matter what. You just want to make sure that when it comes, that you have, like they talked about the protective equipment, masks and gloves and disinfectants and thermometers to scan. Do we have all that in place? Well, did we have an opportunity to buy that? Or because we got just thrown in this whirlwind of things and, people are scrambling to try to get that. Well, what it was like trying to get masks when this first came out. Well, the same hand sanitizer and disinfectants. It's hard to get that stuff now. And the medical profession is getting that before the athletic training profession is getting it. So those are the challenges that are real challenges that people are facing right now. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. But, life must go on. I mean, we've got to do it the best we can to keep normalcy. Otherwise, people go crazy, start looking and writing,
Yeah, really. Jim, before we go, any shout outs or any message you want to give to maybe former trainers or our friends, family maybe watching?
Well, I tried to throw in as many as I could, when we got started there, when we started talking about the trainers in the Valley, and, but I know there's an awful lot of athletes out there. There's a lot of Pan Am athletes that are out there that, I give a lot of kudos to those kids who work so hard through that, that process. Some kids are full scholarships and some kids had nothing, I remember road trips when we were in basketball and we were eating at Olive Garden. And I remember road trips on cross country when I was making peanut butter sandwiches in the front of the van, so, but to me, it was, everybody's just trying to work just as hard. So I give a lot of kudos to those athletes that worked hard if they weren't the top sport, and a lot of those kids are still here in the Valley and they're still coaching in the Valley. And one of the coolest things about being in a school district now is when we go to things like track meets, I'm running into ex-athletes who are now coaches. And I'm seeing those guys, and a lot of memories are coming back. So I give a lot of kudos to the ex-athletes. There's a lot of them out there. A lot of my trainers have come and gone. Some of them are in the profession still. Some of them are still going, and some of them have moved on. But there's so many of them, and that's why I try to throw in as many names as I could. It's like, okay, did I make a list? I should have kept the list. But yeah, no, I just appreciate the opportunity for me to give some credence to the profession of athletic training, because it is. I always thought what you call job security. Athletic training is job security. It's always going to be athletics at some point in time. As long as there's athletics, people are going to get hurt. As long as people are getting hurt, they're going to be athletic trainers or something close to it, sports medicine programs, things like that. So it's changed an awful lot from back when I started. There's a little story I always like to tell. When I was in school, one of my colleagues was to be the head trainer at UT San Antonio, Jerry Greason. And Jerry and I actually taught the athletic training class for our head athletic trainer when we were at UT. And one day we pulled over our head trainer, Spanky Stevens, and said, "Hey, Spanky, when are you guys going to teach us some stuff, some information?" And he pulled down one of these old anatomical charts that you see, those roll up like that. And he goes, "There's your shoulder, there's your knee, there's your ankle. What else you want to know?" And when I look at it back then, it was the watch, look, and listen and learn that we were watching everything that they did. And we learned from that because they didn't have books. They didn't have videos. They didn't have computers. They didn't have online programs. There was probably one book that was probably the classic athletic training book. That was the only thing I had access to. And it was a pioneering profession where we were learning from guys who were, if you have, nowadays linemen have these custom made gloves and all this stuff. We used to hand make them, we used to create things. And then all of a sudden, as I look back over the years and I'm looking at catalog, man, I remember we used to make this by hand. Now they're making these things custom made, and I've watched the profession grow. I mean, it's been 40 years now. So I've watched the profession grow. It's been a lot of fun. There's been a lot of challenges, but it's a lot of learning, and I just look back now and I'm just proud that I've been able to offer that opportunity and pay forward to a lot of those students out there that worked with us, because they helped me as much as I helped them, I'd say, because I needed that support. I needed not only their manual labor, so to speak, but the confidence that I wasn't the only one doing it all, and I always told myself, I'm not going to ask you to do something that I wouldn't do myself or haven't already done myself. And I think maybe that's probably what made a lot of them feel like, well, no, I can do this. whether it's mopping the floor, wiping down the tables, or cleaning the whirlpool. Those are things that you do as part of the job, because the safety and the welfare of the athlete is there. The disinfecting, sanitizing the facility, those are critical. And it's an important it's an important position. It's an important position, and it's changed an awful lot, and it's going to change a lot more here in the near future. But I guess we'll all have to adapt and adjust, and I think that's what athletic trainers do. They adapt and overcome. They adapt and adjust.
Again, before we wrap up, we're joined by Jim Lancaster, the Hall of Famer and ECISD athletic trainer. We're going to keep the Pan Am train rolling at 3. Bianca Torre is going to join us here on the show, so I know she's pretty excited about that.
That's
and
good.
Later today at 5, Adi and Sabian Arsenault, a couple of Hannah products. They're going to be a brother-sister combo. They're going to be joining us later today at 5. Jim, thanks for coming on the show and sharing, all the storytelling and with the athletic training. And it's just a different perspective for people that are watching, because we've had athletes, coaches, media members all chime in on the pandemic and how all we're adjusting to it. And then also from the athletic trainer standpoint and how you guys are adjusting to it. And you guys are on the front lines just as much as anybody as well. So thanks for joining us and taking the time out of your schedule.
Appreciate the opportunity, Kevin. Thanks again.
For sure. That's Jim Lancaster. We'll see you soon.
All right. Take care.